Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 50 of the Golden Shovel Wrestling Podcast. 8 months after we started, we're finally at the milestone after going 2 weeks. And this week is all about looking back at the weekend's WarGames Survivor Series matches. Let's get right into it. Ross, how we doing?
Good, man. I'm good. I think we've got a lot to chew through tonight between weird SmackDown that we knew the results of a week ahead in advance, divisive WarGames, shall we call it divisive, and pretty solid Raw after it. So yeah, lots to talk about as always.
I mean, as always, we usually start with SmackDown, but I've actually got a minute to skip it, mostly because if I look back at the SmackDown match, you've got two matches from the John Cena tournament, and we talked about the Miz LA Knight situation last week. So I'm going to skip that because we're going to talk about the semi-finals anyway on Raw, and Asuka Charlotte Flair was for the advantage, which we'll cover in the WarGames and in the main event. We've already covered massively the whole thing of Sami Zayn's career seems to have gone backwards post-US Open title run. What is the plan for him? And this is, as I've said to you before, going to be a week I think of me ranting at Triple H and the booking team because I am not a happy chappy this week. Let's just go straight in to WarGames. And we opened with WarGames. And I'm going to start, before we go into the match itself for us, what's your thoughts on burning off the shark cage element of WarGames?
Yeah, it was weird. It wasn't it? It did feel like they took a little bit away from taking that out, which is a shame. Like, I can understand that maybe there was like a logistics argument of the space they had to work with. I can understand if they thought that Lesnar was just going to get stuck in one of them and then never be able to come out. But yeah, it just, I don't know about you, I just felt like it maybe wasn't quite WarGames without having that. It's one of the things that kind of sets it apart a little bit. So that was a little bit of a shame.
I thought it took away from it. Now, I've heard a lot of stories and rumours about it might have been the reason, and one of the things that did flag up was the fact that they were outside. And maybe it was just as simple as that, keep them to the back, stay warm. And that makes sense up until you realise they could have chosen not to hold the event outside. And one thing I've seen praised on this is the fact that your 10 biggest stars on each side of the company got their entrances. But because you don't have a roof, you lose the pop anyway. The pops were poor. Like, if you get to the Dominik Mysterio match, but if you hear Liv Morgan's music hit on TV, there is no reaction, but you see videos from inside the stadium and it's huge. So you lose that pop anyway. But there's nothing more infuriating than seeing somebody dance their way to the ring when you know their teammates getting the shit kicked out of them. And it's like, come on. And the interesting thing is, this is the first time I've watched WarGames live, right? Because normally I would just watch the next day or whatever. And I was so disappointed. And the women's match really set the tone, I thought, for what was a bang average card. If I was to give you my overall thoughts, Ross, and I'll let you take this on for there, is I thought the match was extremely, I like this word clunky. I thought it was very clunky, and that there was a lot of waiting for spots. Like the Io Sky bit, yeah, it looks brilliant, but then you realise that everybody was assembled for about 20 seconds before it happened. There was no flow, and that wasn't the only one. It was really bad early on. I'm also not a huge fan of a match where you have 9 people in it, and technically the match hasn't started yet. But yeah, the general clunkiness, the lack of drama and storytelling, I wasn't a fan of. I actually think I would have preferred it had Becky escaped the cage in 450. I think that would have been befitting of the character she's currently playing. I think what actually happened was just, again, weak sauce. Like, I don't think having AJ Lee tap her out is the right decision once again. And I'm sure there was a spot in the middle where there was a double pin happening and one pin get broke up, but then the ref stopped counting both pins. Like, overall, it was, considering that MD could listen to this and think we hate the women's wrestling, it was the division we have been nothing but praise all year, saying that it's by far. And then on Monday night, once again, they almost showed like they are the level above what the men have produced for most of the year. But I was extremely disappointed. It was produced even to the point where, Ross, I'm questioning, like, you can't just be like every year Io Sky jumping off the top of the cage with a bin. Is that's a problem? That's a problem to me.
Okay, I'll try and pick through it. We spoke in the lead up to this that we thought these matches in general were always kind of spot fests. So in effect, I kind of got what I expected, and I don't know if we can be too hypercritical from that element, just because we knew we were sitting down, yourself live, myself the next day, or the next day and the day after, to watch. And I think that was why we thought that someone like AJ Lee would actually look okay, because you're able to give her a few spots. Now, for what it's worth, I actually thought that's the best that she's looked. I thought she'd done her spots and got out of the way, the same as kind of everyone.
Fucking worse than last time.
Well, agreed, but I think there was a definite improvement, a step up was definitely made there, and if we're going to have her there, that's what we need. We need to see that improvement. I am kind of one of those suckers for the spot that you always expect to see, like the Royal Rumble, someone does something acrobatic to stay in the match. I love that shit. I'm a sucker for that shit. So give me Io Sky jumping off of a bin. Don't give me the bit where the camera's focused on her when she's got her arm down and she's actually physically moving them. That you don't need that. You need to be a little bit more clever there. But yeah, the finish is probably the only bit that for me confuses me a little bit, because
bear in mind that spot led in to the finish, which didn't help it either, because it was such, as you say, showing her going like that, pointing them away, added a clunkiness to the finish. Like that whole bit was the finish, which doesn't help anyway. Sorry, I digress.
It's true. It is true. It is definitely true. I think that your suggested finish would make more sense because of how the tap looked, because the tap looks quite legitimate. Whereas obviously then Becky Lynch is coming out and saying, look, I wasn't tapping, I was trying to signal to a teammate. I would actually prefer if that's how if they were going to go for a tap, in air quotes for those listening on audio, to actually have her not really tap, really, really drive into this angle that the ref is against her and loving it. I think that would have been a little bit better. For me, though, the match was fine. A little bit iffy at points, but we've spoken in the past about how these matches can be quite difficult to book just because you have the dual ring setup, you have 10 people at any given moment, and it is just a bit tricky. You even see it at some points with the camera work. The camera people are struggling to kind of keep up when it gets like 8 of them plus. They're struggling to keep up with what's going on at times. So I do sympathise with that. Maybe it's something that we have to hope that in the future is only really brought out for storytelling reasons, just to make it slightly less spotty, just because they actually had the chance to spin off at least one story and keep it going, and they kind of, in my opinion, they fumbled it a little bit just with that finish. But of the two, this was the better match. I will get to the men's match, but there was just issues with that really as a whole. But yeah,
I'm obviously been hypercritical, and I have been hypercritical this year, particularly the events I happen to have watched at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. May or may not add to my disdain for certain events.
Yes, I sat and watched this the next morning with my breakfast type thing, so it is a different, it's a different experience.
I have now said that I am done watching PLEs live, unless they're on a suitable European time, because every Saturday night's main event, WrestlePalooza, this, apart from SummerSlam, I feel as though they've all been a letdown this year. Even some parts of Mania were a letdown, and I'm done. I'm so done with it. I was extremely disappointed, to the point where I don't even give any match on the card like past match. I just thought it was overall a very lowly ranked event. And we've had this, we mentioned it last week, and it seemed to, I don't know, I'm not sure if it made its way into the narrative before or after the podcast. We know that Hunter does listen, but Daz also talked about treating this sort of WarGames as an all-star type thing. I think that's such a huge mistake, because basically every year we're going to go from SummerSlam in August to the Rumble in January where nothing really happens. And I'm with you, like, make Survivor Series. Remember about a decade ago, they binned Survivor Series off completely. And then it reappeared later in the year. They were going to get rid of it because they were like, we're done doing the brand thing. Well, before that, they'd binned off bragging rights. I think maybe they were using bragging rights, but they'd binned off the kind of 5v5 thing. We're not really sure what's anymore. We're just going to have a normal PLE. Then they brought the name back. Keep the name. It just doesn't need the traditional match. They can have one traditional match, whatever, on the card. But WarGames should go in, as you say, it should be like, I believe there was a WarGames story to tell for both the men's and women's side. I just don't think that story was to be told now. I felt it was they were forced, it was shoehorned in because of the timing. Whereas have a WarGames match at the Royal Rumble, maybe the Rumble, because you need two rings, but have it at any other event. Like, it doesn't need to be.
You could put it on a Saturday night main event if you really want to make their Saturday night main events these next big things.
I know.
Chucking one of these gimmick matches on there is not a bad shout.
So I just think that it really didn't help, and I'm with you on the storytelling aspect, because the AJ Lee Becky Lynch feud was going to continue coming out of that weekend regardless of what happened in the ring, and I just feel as though they've missed an opportunity to elevate or push on another story. We called for the heels to go over in this match, I believe. Yes, I think
so.
I think we did. Aye, because I actually had Becky standing tall because I felt like she'd been looked too weak recently. But we called for the heels to go over because the faces had all the momentum in the story, and it's just a strange one. And then to see Monday night, you've now got the two teams within the face team essentially going against each other to try and win the women's tag titles. Is like, okay, you may eventually pull the trigger on a heel turn, but you could have done something Saturday night because they all got on too well. Like, yeah, just a little bit of animosity in the ring would have been useful.
Yeah, or like a side eye or something in the post result. You know, there are little teases that they quite often give us that they just never did this time, which is quite interesting.
And I have calmed down now that it's Tuesday, but up until about 15-16 hours ago I was still fizzing. I really did enjoy the show, and I really did enjoy the match, and I'm going to make a point, apart from John Cena's last match, I will watch that live, but I am going to make a point moving forward of watching them the next day. I like watching them live because I can watch them and it's my genuine opinion, because I don't hide the fact that I will read what happened and I'll watch stuff on TikTok and Instagram before I watch it non-live the next day. At least it's my opinion, and yes, when I see other people, I might change my opinion and I might say, okay, I can see that point of view, I might not agree with it, but I can see it. But I thought it was I thought it was poor. I thought it was really poor.
Whereas, like, overall for me, I thought the card just felt average. It felt okay because certainly I really enjoyed it's probably quite a natural sort of segue into the next match, where I actually really quite like the super overbooked element of Cena and Dom, because it's a throwback to what used to happen all of the time in that era with Cena. So I didn't mind.
And you're right, it is a nice segue, because I didn't enjoy the match. At the time I was enjoying it, but in hindsight I actually changed my mind and thought, no, I did not enjoy watching that. Which is unusual, because they're my two favourite people in the company right now. And I'm going to get to why I didn't enjoy it in a minute. I understand it. It's overbooked nonsense, because like, I've been giving credit to overbooked nonsense when it's the heels, when it's the hits, when it's AJ Styles, or when it's Logan Paul doing big spots, or whatever else. But I felt like this one should have been different, because it's somebody who's never worked with before, but also it's for the IC title and it was to put Dom over. I felt as though it should have been just not booked normally, but just toned back a little bit. I felt like having 5 people interfere in Dom's behalf was unnecessary. But again, I understand the element of John Cena's now worked with 5 more people and made Raquel and Roxanne look really strong. It's one of the ones where I'm understanding of why it was done and how it happened. I just don't like it. And the one thing I didn't like was the fake. I said this before with the CM Punk Becky Lynch stuff. I'm not a huge fan of DV type angles. I think the idea that Liv Morgan is going to slap Dom in the face every time she appears in the ring is it's a bit distasteful. Yeah, I don't like it. I just don't like it. It's too controversial, especially in a company that don't have intergender matches. You're not you have intergender matches, but if the male tags it, then the other male's going to tag it, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's not like a Lucha Underground type scenario where you are actually allowed to go.
Even then, that's choreographed in such a way that it's showing off the performance of 2 artists in a ring, not a fight. It is different. I don't like it. And when she slaps Dom and jumps into John Cena's arms, I'm like, why would John Cena fall for that? He would know that he's not planned anything with Liv Morgan. He would know that he's not dating Liv Morgan. Like, I get the call back to him kicking Cody in the nads and stuff, but like, who is booking this shit? Like, there is not a single person in that arena that genuinely would have thought that Liv Morgan was turning on Dom Mysterio and aligning with John Cena for 2 fucking weeks.
It's one of those ones though where I could believe it. I'm
sorry.
In the heat of battle, it's something that you would hear her music, and I think if you were in John Cena's shoes, you'd be like, oh shit, she's coming for me. And then when she slaps him and goes to hug you probably would be completely off guard. I could buy that. Genuinely, I could buy that. The adrenaline's pumping. It was still funny though. it's one of those things. Like ultimately, that's the kind of funny, wacky shit that I personally quite enjoy. And look, yeah, I
No,
agree. I think that it gives you a situation where you then we can say that Cena has worked with these people, and I think we can get behind that. I think it then makes this last match kind of interesting because it's weirdly made Cena look quite strong because he's needed 5 people to put him down there. So does it add that almost question mark of, oh, well, is Cena actually going to win that last one? Is he going out on his back? Does it make that more of a question mark? Maybe.
I think it at least opens up. We'll get to it when we get to the Raw section, but I think at least opens up the possibility of him winning the last match.
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Which I didn't think existed. But I think I like the wacky stuff. I would have liked a slightly cleaner win. And that goes back to we're going to get to the men's main event as well. But heels are allowed to win clean and look strong. You're allowed to have a strong heel. Like, Brock Lesnar's basically been a heel for the last 20 years, and he doesn't need
wacky finishes, no.
Sketchy finishes. But you know what I mean? Like, I'm listening to maybe the worst example I could have picked based on WrestlePalooza, but you know what I mean? You can be at Roman Reigns for the first half of his reign, did win a lot of matches clean. Okay, towards the end, it got a bit of a joke, but your heels are allowed to win occasionally clean, and I know why they're not doing it with Dom, because I just think Dom's face turn is undeniable and inevitable. Fuck me, who is booking this shit? Come on, like, just I was really disappointed. Like, I enjoyed it on a fun level. I just thought I was left confused. Like, at the end of the day, I was watching John Cena. I don't really give a shit. I'll enjoy it and stuff. I'm wondering what's next for Dom as well, because it wasn't clear on Monday night what the angle will be. It could be Finn. I think the Judgment Day breakup needs to happen.
I think it will.
Sure. I would have assumed it would have been something with Penta, and obviously that's now gone for at least a good 6 months, would I say, based on Penta's injury. But I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I didn't think John was going to carry the title into the last match, to be honest. So I'm okay with it. You know the biggest gripe I have? Liv Morgan is as big a star in that company as anyone else has been. Her work and improvement in the last 6-7 years has been phenomenal. From a kind of, I say a sidekick, but she wasn't the main character in the Riot Squad. That was also Ruby Riot. Somewhat of a sidekick without being a sidekick, to bona fide superstar who you could straddle the title to tomorrow and know that everything is safe on your side of the brand and your women's division. And I feel like I get that the positions are looking strong, and she's been looked at as like a leader in the Judgment Day, so that's fine. But her pop, I feel like, should have been for her, because she came out with Spanish word on her arse and fucking Dom Mysterio's mask on her jeans and stuff. It was very clear that she was still signed, so I'd have liked to have seen her come back for her, whether it was at the Rumble or whether it was her pop, not Dom's pop, which is very pernickety. But
it's one of those ones, isn't it?
I think I was still pissed off in match 1, to be honest, at this point.
That's potentially it, because I think we'd spoken before about how the Rumble's going to be very tricky to get these big surprises in, knowing that the way that the travel situation is, and that we're going to have these big moments at some point. So what event was left, really, to do that?
I did speculate that the random Saturday night's main event the week prior to the Royal Rumble in Montreal, Quebec, Canada would likely do some of the surprises, because they're, for some reason, doing a whole European tour, then going back to the States and then going back, or back to North America and going back to Saudi. No, I mean, that's a fair point. That is a fair point. It was probably still the best match of the night. I think so.
I think out of the 4, I think it was. It was enjoyable.
Not saying much.
It's two or one GOAT and one bona fide stud going up against each other. It was very enjoyable. That's the kind of stuff I want. I was actually, though, quite surprised. I'm not saying it was amazing, right? I'm not saying that. I actually thought that the match between Stephanie Vaquer and Nikki Bella was actually a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. That was actually not too bad as a wrestling match. But I think that's obviously because of certainly one of the two of them is a bona fide stud, so that helps. But
probably also helps that I left you with zero expectations when you went to watch it.
Potentially.
Because I'm not going to lie, I fell asleep and woke up to Stephanie Vaquer rattling Nikki Bella's face off the announce table to rewatch it the next day. I think the issue I had with this match in particular is I had a mindset going into it of, I'm not going to enjoy this. This is a waste of time. And I've seen people call out Booker on the internet saying, what was the point in turning Nikki Bella? When I do get that, maybe I would have bought into it had they went for a screwy finish and had Nikki Bella get DQ'd by laying out Stephanie Vaquer and beating her down, and maybe just bought one more match. I could have probably bought into that, but they're right. They've turned her heel, and that's the end of it.
Yeah.
Again, I know Nikki Bella is somewhat of a part-timer, and I don't think she's on the level of Stephanie Vaquer in 2025. I never bought into it, but I could have bought into, like, okay, we're going down the route of the dirty heel who's willing to do whatever it takes to win a title and beat you for the head with something and hit you in the face with something. I can buy into that. But the match, and it wasn't one-sided, but it felt one-sided. Like, everything was happening. I was just like, there's only ending one way. And I was actually disappointed that Stephanie Vaquer had to break out the corkscrew splash, because she's only burst out a couple of times, and I feel like giving it to Nikki Bella doesn't fit with how it's been used, and also it needs a name, which you and I tried to give it a name a few weeks ago or a couple months ago, and it's still being called the corkscrew splash.
Someone named it. I could have swore I feel like I heard the name and then they went back to not naming it again. But that could just be me, seeing a tweet and thinking that it happened in real life. Yeah, the match was okay. And I think that you're right. I think that it's probably one of those ones that benefited from they kind of got caught between a rock and a hard place, and they should have just chose one. And I think it would have worked. Like, that match would have also been better if it was a La Primera, like 3-minute squash. That would also have worked pretty well, because it really makes her look proper strong. Or your idea of finding a way of Nikki extending this on, because yes, I know there is a video kicking about of her saying, like, on camera, like, I'll be back, this isn't the last you're going to see of me and stuff. Fine, but be probably
it has to be now, though.
Yeah, I don't.
She's not done enough to warrant being involved. That's the problem.
Yeah, like, even find a way. Like, I know that Brie doesn't do it anymore, but like, if you're gonna do a screwy finish, get Brie to come out and do something, and then go, right, that's you. You don't need to appear anymore. That would have maybe fit. The actual match itself was decent. I actually thought that Nikki was a little better than I thought she was going to be. Clearly, she has been working at it, which is good. That's what we want. We want to see two people go. But I do wonder where they will go from here. Obviously, they tease some things on Raw that we'll get to when we have a quick skim through of Raw. But yeah, a little bit better than I thought it was going to be. But it's probably just one of those ones where, again, the booking's just not quite just gone in a direction fully that meant we could have maybe, picked apart the reasons behind the direction if they went for it. They just kind of stayed in the middle. And
I think there was an opportunity as well, because obviously, so we did the prediction shows last week. I put the schedule together for the pod, and normally I go with what I think will happen. Sometimes by that point the main event's been announced, but a lot of the time it's just, the world title will go on last type thing, and that's just that. So often I try and do it so that we're doing the predictions. It's like, right, how are we going to have a good segment, maybe a lull, then a big segment, so we don't have like 3 really long segments and then 2 or 3 really short segments, because there's matches we talk about, a lot of matches we don't talk about quite as much. I think this match did suffer from its card positioning, because when we did the prediction show last week, I said I think I would have Dom Cena open, and for the women going second for the WarGames, then this match, and then the men's WarGames last. What happened was you had a really disappointing opening WarGames. Then you had the GOAT and a future potential high-level talent, a huge return from one of your biggest stars in Liv Morgan, and a title change. And then you had this match going next. With the anticipation of men's WarGames. Now, get to what happened in men's WarGames in a minute. The anticipation, that means that it was probably the worst place to be in the card, whereas had Dom Cena opened, if women's WarGames delivers, then the third match is no better off or worse off than what it was anyway. But if it turns out the way it did turn out, the crowd get a wee bit, oh, come on, that was a bit disappointing, and then the really solid match after it is in a good position. So I just think it's... as you say, the actual wrestling was good. It's probably a situation where realistically Nikki's not winning, she's not walking out with the title, therefore you've kind of got an idea in your head of what's going to happen. It's just how it's going to happen, and it ended up being as we kind of said, like, I'm not saying a worst case scenario, but what you had was a 12-minute wrestling match, which is like not long, not short, not a squash, but ultimately the last few minutes from Stephanie Vaquer were very one-sided. Like, once it didn't have back and forth. Once the momentum swung, it never swung back. So it was. I just didn't do anything. It didn't cement the heel turn for Nikki Bella, and it didn't produce what's coming next. And I don't think it was good enough to call it a good standalone one-off title match. Like,
yeah, it was probably missing something, wasn't it? Just that little extra something that you go, right, Okay. Which I think that's maybe just the theme of the card, is that if they had just went an extra 5% in each one of the matches, it probably really lifted the entire thing. And maybe that's just all it's missing. Is it as simple as there are far too many of these events and it's just not doable now anymore? That's the WWE's fault because they're the ones who book it, they're the ones who schedule these things. I don't know. It's probably a wider conversation that we need to dive into, don't we, to try and kind of work out. Because you're right, I haven't been as disappointed as them as you have, right? But on the whole, a lot of them could have been better. Quite a lot of these big events could have been better, and this, sadly, as much as I thought it was okay, is another one that falls into that bucket.
It comes across as that Survivor Series is not a big four anymore. And ultimately, we're probably looking at it's a big three, because I don't think Money in the Bank's good enough anymore, because the concept hasn't been. I know the cash-ins this year were brilliant, but the concept hasn't delivered the way it has in the past. And we talked about that at length throughout the summer, so I won't go back to it, but I feel like realistically the rest of them have separated themselves. And if I'm being brutally honest, the best show for me this year, spoiler alert for when we get to the award season, was SummerSlam. I thought SummerSlam eclipsed WrestleMania.
It was great.
And I actually I as well thought that the Rumble also disappointed this year a little bit. And that it was very predictable. We can discuss whether JSO winning was really that predictable. But he had enough of a history with Gunther, and there was enough rumour that it could have been him, that it was, you know what I mean? And if you also think back to the fact that John Cena had already been announced for Elimination Chamber at this point, they wouldn't use up an appearance at EC without a match.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Therefore, he was never winning the Rumble. It meant it wasn't as unpredictable as maybe what you think. So, I mean, I'm talking to myself here and I'm thinking, right, ironically, the big PLEs that have a stipulation that leads to storytelling where you are backed into a corner are the ones that disappointed this year, because they've taken the easy way out. Ultimately, because the Rumble was straightforward on both sides, realistically, because GSO did have that story with Gunther, and Charlotte coming back was inevitably going to win. Money in the Bank picked two people who we even in this podcast, as people who are new to this, had said months before, these people need to be in the world title picture soon. Owens needs to go and rescue that world heavyweight title from JSO at the time, and Naomi deserves a shot at world title again. We said that, so that wasn't a surprise, and you picked the safe options. And then at WarGames, it's almost the same thing. It's like, let's just make it standalone event, and it's an all-star thing, because you have to go for the story. And yet the other events like Clash in Paris, the show in Australia, SummerSlam, have been phenomenal, like unbelievably good. Even Backlash was pretty good, to be honest. And I just think, is that the issue, that they've not allowed themselves some flexibility. Same Elimination Chamber's shite every year. Because it's been a long time since they've ever went down the route of, we could actually change the WrestleMania picture. It's locked in already.
Yeah.
And we're going to get to Raw, but it's basically, okay, we might see something on the Raw side of things, but I think the matches are locked in. It's just whether ones are for titles and not.
I think that's
issue.
a fair. It's a fair thing to say, especially when the men's match ended as like another ending segment of Raw. That's kind of how that ended,
and
which was the only match of the four that really disappointed me. I think of the four, like genuinely, I was just like,
and I think the reason I'm saying that is like, and I've said this multiple times, we had a period in summer where we kept saying there's too many PLEs and they can't get through stories quick enough, to now, why, if you're in America, why would you pay for your subscription to ESPN Plus for the wrestling when there is now no PLE until the 31st of January? You get two Saturday night mid events. Like, it's so confusing. They're missing it, and John Cena's retiring a fucking Saturday night's main event on YouTube. That's just ridiculous.
It's weird, isn't it?
Who is booking this shit? But yes, the final match of Survivor Series WarGames, and we're going to need to keep this to sort of 8 to 10 minute segment, but we will dip in and out. What happened on Raw was, of course, the men's WarGames. I will give you, we've already given a thought multiple times tonight, Ross, but I'm with you, and I'm with you because it had too many of the elements of shit I don't like. It's like you make a big deal throughout the show about how leaving the ring and leaving the cage is a forfeit, and then Brock Lesnar steps out, and yes, okay, the technicality, the loophole is, the match technically doesn't.
Yeah.
The match doesn't start until the last person's in. However, that's also technically bullshit, because they ring the bell at the start of the match. Start of the match. So don't ring the bell away at the beginning. don't ring the bell, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's a fair tweak. That wouldn't be too hard to tweak.
Don't ring that bell. The match hasn't started. They ring the bell again when the 10th person enters, so I didn't like that, which is pernickety. But it's like you made a big deal about it, but then obviously they're making a big deal about it to set up the loophole. But WarGames has been around for 30 odd years and it's never been done before, so like accept it. It's one of the ones that's like an unwritten rule. Even if it's not written down, you've cheated to get it out. Brock entered and left the cage. Right? It had clunky spots. It wasn't as bad as the women, but there inevitably is some clunkiness, which is fine. But so it's not as bad as the women, but it still had them. I thought it had a relatively weak finish. Even though the world champion get pinned, I still felt like it was, considering what we've seen people kick out of even earlier in the show, right? And ultimately, once again, had interference that was not needed. You had 10 people in the ring. The one thing you didn't need was an 11th person.
Yes, I find that odd. I really do. Especially because obviously now we're speculating about who this person is.
So it's worth pointing out that the person under the mask on Saturday doesn't need to be the person that gets revealed.
Yes, I presume though, if it's not Austin Theory, I'm not really sure what it is we're doing with that at all.
I have seen far too many TikToks this week of here is Austin Theory's arse and here is the guy in the black's arse. They are the same arse. And they are the same. I'm not going to lie. It's the same arsehole. It's the same backside. It's clear. But yes.
Yeah, I think that's all we need to really say about it, don't we? Is that it's frustrating because they had the opportunity to probably spin off 3 stories and they've obviously got a question mark on one, which is the whole Austin Theory question mark. We don't know when that will be resolved. I presume they're going to maybe put that to one side for a little bit. Who knows?
I would assume they might hold that off until this January 5th episode of Raw. For the anniversary /
in which case you've started something in November and you're not going to touch again to January. And I get it because obviously Saturday night's main event that's coming is the big one, right? So I understand that perspective.
But they've already laid the groundwork for Saturday night's main event being a standalone show and not really being about the stories by having the NXT thing. So
so don't do this. You can do this on a Raw.
Don't do that. You can still have the stories. Just everybody's already pre-programmed that this Saturday night's main event isn't going to be a storyline driven show.
Yeah, it is a little strange, and the match just felt a bit iffy, and then it feels like we're getting the same sort of Mania matches because, as we'd spoken about a few minutes ago, we're already on rails to Mania. Kind of feels like we know what 2 of those matches are going to be already, which I don't necessarily dislike knowing what they are. We could a little bit of change up. We can switch this up a little bit. We don't have to run the same thing every year, every 2 years. A bit of variation, lads.
I do need to jump in though and say this could be a bit of a kind of ramble for the next couple of minutes, Ross. So bear with me and take notes. But
I'll put my feet up.
I've noticed. No, I'm not taking notes as in this is going to be some sort of amazing monologue. I mean, take notes as in I might need you to rebut me at some point.
So there's not a test at the end. Then is that what you're saying?
So I said to Adam in our group chat earlier that the Rumble next month, next month now, doesn't actually have a confirmed venue yet. Right?
That's true.
So it's not confirmed if it's an arena, a smaller stadium, the bigger stadium, or whatever it's going to look like, which concerns me as somebody who was genuinely considering Riyadh for the WrestleMania the following year, because I think it would, I've always wanted to go to the Middle East, but I think it would be pretty cool. So the thing I saw is, how do you plan ahead as a fan who might want to go to these shows? Because Roman and Cody are your 2 biggest stars, agreed, even though we dislike Cody here. If they're booking that for a 3rd time in 4 years, that suggests some sort of panic from a TKO board financial point of view, right? Because it's the type of match that if you held it off 1 more year, okay, it might put bums in seats in Saudi. Does this mean they're planning for no sort of travelling touristy fans come 2027? Because you would need to know by now, okay, it's going to be Riyadh, but where in Riyadh and what's the plans? Because you want to book your tickets in advance. You don't just fly to Riyadh with the risk of not getting tickets. I don't think touts would be a thing in Saudi Arabia, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So if they haven't confirmed the Rumble for next month, where it is, then when do they confirm Mania? Especially when they're rebuilding all the stadiums for the World Cup in 2034. So I was surprised that they're even teasing Cody versus Roman. I think it's too early to do it again. I think it's been done twice, right? I think it's too early. I think it suggests, I agree with the report about whether I saw it. that it's suggesting an amount of panic that they need to start the card if they go that route. Personally, I think Roman should challenge elsewhere. I personally want to see Roman versus Brock, which I know sounds silly saying that I don't want to see Roman versus Cody again. The stare down. Wait, I said this 2 weeks ago about being in the main event and being a main eventer. That stare down was just pure aura. Brock looked like he was down 15 pound of flab and was absolute solid muscle, obviously up in Saskatchewan with the Canadian steroids and whatever else he's got up there. Allegedly.
Yes, let's not be like this.
Right, he did fairly drugs testing UFC, didn't he? But allegedly. He even though he frustrates the fuck out of me sometimes, I looked at that and went, yeah, that's a main eventer. Brock versus Roman. I'd watch that again. I think Roman's pretty much locked in to win the Rumble. I think he's locked in to win the Rumble because if you look at the greats in history, most of them end up winning a second, right?
I think that's
most
a
of them
point.
do win. And Roman's one win was booed at the building, hated, and The Rock had to help him. He needs one on his own.
Yeah, but people will pop and go crazy.
Aye. So I think Roman's locked in. I would like to see him go after the World Heavyweight title because I think it would help legitimise that as a second title. I think Jey Uso last year picking it obviously helped because I said at the time as well, before we did this podcast, that at some point someone has to pick the World Heavyweight title for Rumble wins and stuff because otherwise it doesn't matter. I think Roman really legitimises that. I think Roman versus Punk's another dream match. I just don't think Punk can hang with Roman Reigns anymore. I just don't think he's got at that level. I would like to see Roman versus Braun. I'd like to see Roman versus Brock. I would accept Roman versus Cody. Ultimately, the match should have been Roman versus Seth, and that's the only pivot I'm not sure about. I really think, basically my worry is that TKO are stacking the deck for this year because they want to see another record-breaking profit year like they had last year at Mania. That's why they forced it back to Vegas. They basically used the profit to pay off New Orleans to basically say that, we're going to go back to Vegas and we're going to make the money back anyway. So they're obviously trying to cover bills. They know the following year's going to be the most profitable WrestleMania in history because of where it is and how they're paying for it. If this is a stacked deck, the roster's not going to turn over so much by 2027 that we're going to see more repeats. We know that the main event pictures some combination of Cody, Punk, Roman, and either Braun or Brock. I'm holding out hope for LA Knight after last night. We know that it's probably some sort of combination of the 4 of them in certain title, 4 out of 5 of them in certain title permutations, right? I think that's probably fair. They'll leave who Roman's opponents like to be somewhat flexible, I think, for at least the next few weeks. But that's the permutations. But that means that it's probably we'll be sitting here in 12 months' time talking about the same 4 people.
Yeah, which is a problem when you're on a podcast.
Plus probably Gunther, who we'll get to. Plus probably Gunther. So we'll be talking about the same 4 people heading towards Mania because the Saudis will want the biggest names. You know what I mean? I just think it's so predictable. I know I've just been rambling, but it makes sense. I'm about to say it makes sense even though I'm rambling, doesn't it?
Yeah, there's some logic kind of being threaded through that ultimately the people who suffer is, well, the other people on the roster, because if you're not cycling through what happens in a couple of years when all these guys retire, Punk's not getting any younger, Reigns is destined for bigger things. Even if you've got someone like LA Knight, if we think he's going to step up, he's older than you'd think.
Yeah,
he's not going to be around forever. Brock's obviously 2026 is his last, we think. That's all speculation.
Yeah. SummerSlam, yeah.
When it happens come 2027 and post that, all these guys are gone. What do you do then? You have to cycle it through.
There is definitely a possibility of someone like Brock getting a payday for Saudi and doing another 6 months. That's legitimate. However, he's made his money. He might just decide he wants to retire in Minnesota and that's it, done. So I think they've backed themselves in a corner again here, and they're just
potentially.
I feel like they could have put the World Heavyweight title on anybody, right? When Rollins got injured, for a couple of months, they could have reversed it at any time, including building up that first Raw of next year as the Netflix anniversary / new season premiere as a kind of above and beyond show to give it some hype, and then moved it on. WarGames and Saturday would still have been the same 10 people. You know what I mean? The World Heavyweight title, World Heavyweight champion did not need to be involved.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean, to be fair.
And then you can still put it on Punk in January, and it is slightly frustrating. I was trying my best to stall there as much as possible while you fiddled with your mic.
Yeah, it's a shock, man. I'm telling you, it keeps me on my toes.
So I just felt, and I felt like the bit post match was they should just have had that beat down, just have a fight.
It may have been
Punk and Roman showing a bit of respect is fine. Throwing his toys at the pram is come on. And I seen the crowd booing it. They were so disappointed that you basically ended with a really average Raw segment to end a PLE, which, by the way, again, fair play to the WWE, 46,000 people there is ridiculous for a November PLE. Like, cannot argue with the numbers, but
they don't
doesn't
lie.
really say it was a good show.
Yeah, this is probably actually a good time. I know that obviously I've gave my thoughts. You have gave a Shakespearean monologue of your thoughts. This is probably a good time to then plug the Buzzsprout link for those on audio that is in the description. Anyone at home, were you guys in the same sort of boat as we were when it comes to this stuff? Let us know, because it can't just be us two just yelling at clouds. Other people should join us in yelling at clouds.
Yeah, and I'd absolutely love to know from our fellow UK wrestling fans and European wrestling fans, did you feel different about the show live and the next day? Because I had to watch the match 3 and a little bit of the men's match back the next day because I was asleep, unfortunately, on the couch. But I usually give Ross a rundown and he goes and watches it the next day. And sometimes me telling him I was disappointed lowers his expectations and enjoys it. Sometimes, like WrestlePalooza, I get random texts every 20 minutes saying, what the fuck is this shit? So yeah, just let us know how you feel watching in the mall, because I personally am done. I can't do it anymore if that's the one way to watch. Unfortunately, I'll just need to spend time the next day watching it back. And then, post-show, Ross, the man with 3 H's, the notorious Golden Shovel himself, tweets, tune in for an epic Monday Night Raw, which he always tweets after a shit Saturday Night PLE. And ultimately, see, if he hadn't said that, we'd all be sitting there going, that was a really good Raw. But because he went epic, we're all sitting there going, no, it wasn't fucking epic at all. It was a good television show. What is epic, though, is my ever-growing collection of WWE collectibles, including trading cards, retro video games, and inevitably figurines. If you're following us on YouTube, you will see that there's a collaboration up this week with our main channel, which is all about nerd culture and collecting. Ross and I are mostly master setting and subsetting video games at the moment, but I recently visited Birmingham and picked up some old classic WWE games and trading cards. If you see the link, go and check it out. Let us know what you think. Do you enjoy that type of content? If you do, we'll try and do a little bit more on this channel out with the pod and add in some more collaborations. But yes, back to the quote-unquote epic Monday night. Ross, let's start on a high. I haven't got it in match order, I've got it in
Vibe order.
but above all, high vibe order. We might need to go back and revisit the tag team ranking that led to the shortlist, because AJ Lee, I mean,
unbelievable.
That might be the greatest tag team finish I've ever seen in my life, by the way.
I don't think I've ever seen anything like that. I mean, I know that things happen in the indies, and there are certain people who are known for basically disregarding their safety and their safety of others. But in terms of WWE,
and the laws of gravity,
and the laws of gravity, I'm not sure I've ever seen anything like that before.
Have you ever seen a person alley-ooped into a Styles Clash?
To the point where, do you know when they pull it off? Like when they pull off the alley-oop, I think that's why there's the hesitation of actually hitting a Styles Clash, because AJ himself's going, shit, that worked. Because
they have a camera cut right at the time, just in case they don't quite get it right and they can then cut back, and you're like, then you see the replay and you're like, holy fuck, they got that perfect first time. That was
like, and I think everyone in the IWC I've seen has been in unanimous shock that something like that was just pulled out on a Monday night.
So for him that it's not sure what we were alluding to, we're doing an awards show, or possibly split over 2, to be honest, at the end of December, and one will probably get on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, replacing the usual weekly pod. We'll pre-record over for Christmas, and the second one will get as a normal Saturday squash. And what we'll do in the lead up to that is long list to short list. So I'm bringing up a big long list for categories, and then we're going to spend a couple of hours breaking them all down and splitting into podcasts, and then we'll have a short list for the finals. A couple of weeks ago, we went through a long list of tag teams. Well, we're doing it 4 teams, a couple of men, a couple of women's side, but we did always allude to the fact that being a month plus out for the end of the year, it could change if someone has a strong run. And this last night makes me think that we will need to have a recency bias conversation again about AJ Styles and Dragon Lee, because it was beautiful. It was such a good tag team match, and it backs up the thing we say every week on this, Ross. Put good people in good wrestling matches. They'll get over, let them work. The New Day are one of the greatest tag teams of all time. AJ Styles is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, and Dragon Lee's an up-and-comer who is getting the rub of a lifetime right now by working with an absolute legend. It's great storytelling, great in-ring work, elite athleticism, beautiful finish, and someone's getting over that needs to get over.
Everyone wins.
Perfect television wrestling. No complaints. In fact, nothing but praise. So yeah, the tag team match was brilliant. And again, what was really good for us there is we have been quite critical of the Raw tag team division all year, and that may have been the best match from that division all year, and the first match that really competed with what we've seen on SmackDown, shall I say.
Yeah, I
don't think it'll make a match of the year contender, but if we were breaking down like best matches on Raw this year, that would be right up there. Fully deserved, and I'm so glad to see AJ Styles getting a really positive start to what is inevitably his retirement tour as well, which should kick into gear, I guess, next couple of weeks once Cena exits the building for the final time. So, talking about getting over, we have the semi-finals of the Last Time Is Now tournament. Now, I was going to give you an overall picture of some of my thoughts of the situation and then let you come in and we can see where it takes us, because I don't think there's anything to dive into massively here. It's just going to be our thoughts, I think. The first match I'm going to talk about is the LA Knight versus Jericho. I did actually quite enjoy this match. I thought it was a decent finish. It was a good finish that made both guys still look strong. Like, Jay didn't look weak losing that. The disappointing thing, again, is they've brought back this idea of Jericho having the crash out and going to turn heel, but they've had that on pause for 3 or 4 weeks because of WarGames. Like, the same thing we've been talking about is they're basically picking a story back up 3 weeks later. I think it was a surprising finish. I think we all thought that JSO was probably going to make the finals again. LA Knight, I think, needs this. Like, I'd love to find a way for him to win this tournament. I think it'd be great for him, it'd be huge for him, because it would keep him at least intriguing enough at that upper mid-card, lower main event level, whereas if he loses, I think he's done at that level. If you're doing the whole suspend belief, he's losing too many big goods matches type, the same conversation we have with Drew and Kevin Owens and stuff. So I enjoyed it. I think LA Knight deserves a big feature match, which he's going to get next week. On the other side, again, we're not obviously totally sure if Solo was supposed to be here. We think he was, but we don't really know for 100%. Arguably Solo's best match in a long, long time. The question I would ask Ross is, we like Solo. We think he's one of the people who has struggled from like momentum constantly, start. Is that indicative of Solo's level, or is this a case of Gunther might be the best wrestler on the planet or in the company right now, and therefore it is impossible to have a bad match with Gunther?
I mean, I guess both can be true. Really, like, yeah, 2 fantastic matches, and I think I'm like you. I'm massively intrigued to see how this works out. That was Solo's best match in a while. I think we've all sung his praises when he's allowed to work and we've not got some weird MFT nonsense going around him. He is actually very funny and very good. And I think he was able to show that even with the MFT nonsense. It worked. It was interesting. I have absolutely no idea. I think if this was going to be Jay versus Gunther, people who have had a history in the past, I would have thought the plan would have been Gunther goes over, Jay turns heel, and that's how that goes. And there's your jumping off point. The fact they've went for LA Knight when I think it felt like to me they'd forgotten about him over the last 4 months or so. I have absolutely no idea how that's going to go, because I don't think that's a Gunther squash. So what are we going to get, man? I think we're going to get a very, very good, very high quality wrestling match. I'm like you. I think that if Gunther wins that, he needs to beat Cena. He needs to. Whereas if LA Knight wins that, you have options that work for everyone.
Yes.
And I think that's where you just need to go.
You've actually said something that does sort of twig something in the back of my mind. One is that I think it will be a banger of a match. Genuinely think it could be like another one of these match of the year. Not a match of the year contender, but a TV match of the year contender.
Yeah.
Because I like to separate what is a good Monday night might not make a good Saturday night, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Because they're different shows. So I'm intrigued. I'm looking forward to this. I can't see Gunther losing because of how he's been presented with the music coming back. That's the issue. Mm-hmm. But is there a way in which JSO just gets involved because he's having a crash out and just starts beating people with chairs, and maybe he gets Gunther disqualified by attacking LA Knight, and that's a way to do it? I don't know, because I just feel like if Gunther wins, I think it's Monday night. I don't think they've announced it for Friday, so Monday night. If Gunther wins on Monday, he's then beating Cena. You're then looking at that and saying he has to win the Rumble or has to go to Mania for a title. There is no other path.
It needs to happen. It needs to be a top level title. It's not a mid card title.
You need to create a story for him. But if you have Jey Uso get involved, there's at least a story there.
I think so.
Just even for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Which ultimately that's fine, because we say that you need a mix. You need a mix of short, your medium and long term storytelling to just keep everything ticking along. Because if everything's too short term, doesn't work. Here is a medium-term story that you can tell.
There's the other thing that you said that actually did pique my interest. They have forgotten about LA Knight for 3 or 4 months. That's what it feels like. But we have said this about Stephanie Vaquer. We have said this about Tiffany Stratton at one point. We have said this about, Gunther to an extent as well, Punk at one point. But sometimes it feels as though these people aren't forgotten about. Sami Zayn's another one. It's just we need them here in 3 or 4 months' time. So we can't have them here just now. We need to put them away out the road somewhere and bring them back in.
Yeah.
So was the plan all along for LA Knight to be in this position, but they had to keep him away from it because we have seen that. So I don't think that is the case. Gunther feels like the final boss of the WWE right now. He feels like he's controlling the keys to the kingdom, and I'm all for it. I think he's the best full timer I think Roman Reigns is the best wrestler in the business right now. I think he's phenomenal. The aura, love watching the entrance. But he is a part timer, and we think there's maybe medical reasons for that. Gunther as a full timer is head and shoulders above anyone else in that organisation right now, and it's not close. It's not close. I'm going to try and keep this next bit a wee bit shorter, so we've got on the notes to talk about the Dom and Liv promo. I'm going to just segue to the main event situation with the women's tag division. I'm going to do a deeper dive on that next week because I want to see how it just plays out. I think it was, not say it was clunky, but like, why would you have Becky and Lyra there but not have Lash Legend and Nia Jax who were in the WarGames match? Just let's see how it shakes out with SmackDown and Raw next week, and then we'll do a deeper dive on it next week's show.
I think that seems fair.
Because I think there's too many what ifs right now. But it does bring me into the idea that Liv still expects the Judgment Day to go after titles. I wonder if she's fully fit and healthy, because obviously she handed the title back to Roxanne to suggest that it was Roxanne and Raquel going for it, which I think one looks really good at putting them over and keeping them looking strong, shows a level of trust, sets up the inevitable breakup that we've been waiting 3 years for, but suggests she's some sort of orchestrator, managerial type role. So maybe she's not quite ring fit, match fit yet. But I mean, we say it all the time, right? They are positioned so strongly because they have. Dom has his single stuff. Liv is teased a singles bit with Stephanie Vaquer. They have the Liv Dom stuff where they're this power couple and they're even cheered, and then they have the Judgment Day stuff where they're booed. And it's like the versatility for them having 4 stories in the go as faces on Raw is unbelievable. Like we always say, you don't have to be in the main event to be over and be a huge star. You can put on, you do your job well every week, and we will talk about you. People will talk about you and enjoy your work. When that face turn happens, for either of them or both of them, it is going to hit like crack.
Oh yeah,
it is going to be fucking massive.
I cannot wait. I hope that they find a way of giving it the moment it deserves and doing it in the right way. I don't know what that is. I'm not going to sit here and speculate. We will no doubt there will be dead air in the weeks and months to come where we get to sit and pick that apart. But yeah, it's a testament to a group that they have teased breaking up since probably about the week after they formed the damn thing, that they're still here. They're still just, it's almost like 90% of the televised programming is kind of flowing through that stable in some way. There is some way you can link a lot of it back to it, and it's very, very impressive that they've managed to do that.
The fact that none of them are actually original members of the Judgment Day. It's about like the Sugar Babes back in the early 2000s.
Then they came back round again.
Aye, the original lineup had to start a game with a new name. Just Liv's a bona fide main eventer. We talk about being in the main event and being a main eventer. She is a main, and she's earned it because she wasn't 3 years ago. I think after 2 near misses at the Rumble, she should win the Women's Rumble, and I think her versus Stephanie Vaquer is a WrestleMania main event match, and I cannot wait for that. It will 100%. Do numbers, by the way. It will do absolute numbers. It is the right match to book. Dom, I'm more worried about based on the conversation that we've just had, and we're going to segue into about the WrestleMania picture is so clear for this year that it's concerning that it's the same picture 12 months later because of the Saudi factor, and they want the biggest names and the biggest matches. Whereas the position for Dom on that card takes us into the main event, which was annoyingly another segment. It wasn't the main event, but it was. I think this is where my disappointment comes in for the WarGames match, Ross, because Braun Breaker cut an epic promo for the first time in a while, and okay, he needs to learn. I needs to learn, probably can do it. He needs to be able to cut a promo that isn't just the over intense.
Aye,
I've taken 3 ounces of cocaine type promo. It's the, you know what I mean. He needs to have like I guess that's what Heyman's there for, but a more controlled promo. But that was like, okay, I get it, right? I'm happy, great promo. And so I'm into it. Some people saying they don't like it, and that's fine, because it is a different type, but we've had 10 plus years of the heel talking slowly and wearing this type thing. Chris Jericho did it, I think 2007 when he came back for the first time, and that became the thing. Heels wear suits and talk slowly, so it's nice to see something different. I've not seen for a while. Look, a main eventer. He looked like a star, but the disappointment that I had is that we're talking about him looking the part based on a promo on a Monday night, and not the fact that 2 nights before he pinned the world champion.
Yeah,
because that fell flat, and then you teased the other title.
Yeah,
you know, the other side of the story.
Odd, actually. It's a fair point. I actually never really considered that. It is a very fair point, because, you know, as you say, if you can do that with him, why not just give him a better finish? And then it's just like, well, okay, in 48 hours, in the space of 48 hours, he's done this, and he's done this. Holy shit, this is the guy, this is the next guy with us.
But it feels like he's done this in spite of this. It's like, and when he buried the WarGames match itself, I thought it would have been harder to beat CM Punk, but he did go off the ropes 3 times after getting help when the guy curb stomped. Like, I would love to know, was that promo written and planned pre-Saturday night, or was a lot of it in response to the response to Saturday night?
I would assume, based on what we speculate around how certain people are on social media after PLE events, that it's the latter and not the former, which raises its own doubts and questions, because it's one thing that, you know, there's different leadership styles. We can probably kind of sort of wrap ourselves up for the episode and all the things we've spoke about and the things that we've spoke about in the preceding weeks before it, and there's like 2 ways of leading that kind of creative side. You can be the person who just does not give a shit what anyone else thinks. You go, look, I'm just going to do my thing, and I'm going to book this the way I want to book it, and screw each and every one of you at home. I actually don't care. That is a valid way of doing things if you think that you are, you know, God's gift to the earth and the best way of doing it. Or you can go the other way, where you have your ear too far to the ground and you are reactionary off of what people say. Both are valid, but both have flaws, and I suspect that sometimes the way Vince was the former. The way H is more the latter. Both are good and bad, and that's probably where we're kind of landing.
I think the issue with H is he's neither. I think it's like flip-flopping the line too much. Mm-hmm. Like, if we believe that the SummerSlam stuff was a huge pivot, then I'm like, yeah, okay, that was the right time to listen. But now it's as if, right, I've listened once and I'm going to stop listening for 6 months. And it's hard, because, like, they've just sold out 46,000 people into an arena or a stadium for a 4-match card.
Yeah, and the lead up to Christmas. Like, all these things you pull out, Thanksgiving week, yada, yada, like, mad. But yeah, at the same time, people get frustrated with what they're watching and the ticket prices and what have you. It's mad.
We'll need to see how the story plays out, but give me a really early prediction. What do you think happens January 5th?
Oh, we all think that Punk needs his Mania Night 2 moment. So he's going to have the moment. He's probably got to drop it at some point, right? Wouldn't hate it if Braun won it. Would not hate it. He showed me on Monday that there's something there. There's something there. Let him run with it for a month or 2. See, so
that's what I was going to say. If you're me, I would strike below the iron sort and test it, because you've got a Saturday's main event 3 weeks later, 24th of January. You have the Rumble on the 31st, and you have the Elimination Chamber. So you have 3 opportunities, if it's not working, to either change it or even plan to change it for Mania. Also knowing that in the Elimination Chamber he could lose it without really losing it, because he could get ganged up on it or whatever else and stay strong. So it reminds me a little bit of like when Edge won his first title and they said, look, you're getting 3 weeks, and then he got end up 11-time world champion. This is a very similar situation. Just give the guy 3 weeks and see if he can't handle it, he'll drop it before he causes any damage, because he's got 2 events at the end of the month he could do it
easy.
And if it works, give him to the second one, give him the third one.
Yeah, I think let him go all the way to Mania. If he needs to be the guy who has to drop it to Punk, that could work too. Drop it to Punk,
drop it to Roman, drop it to Brock. Who cares? Just give him a chance, see how it works. You don't need to hold titles for 18 months.
100%.
I mean, that's it. That's us for this week. Thank you everyone who's joined us for episode 50. Ross and I talked about this a lot in the last few months, but it's a huge milestone. I think there's some stat saying that something like 8% of podcasts make it to 50 episodes.
Most give up as high as that.
Most give up after less than 5. So we've given it a good go. As I said, I've mentioned about the video over on our main channel, TNF, but you'll see it on the TCS feed on YouTube. if you go over there, go to the video and drop a comment saying what we go for. Say a copy saying Steiner Math, and I'll send you some wrestling cards. All right, there you go. I'll send you some wrestling cards. I've got plenty of dupes because I just keep buying them and whatnot when I'm bored. So comment Steiner Math, and I'll send you some wrestling cards. Unless you're Adam, because he will be listening to this and he'll send that. You'll not get any wrestling cards. We'll be back on Saturday for the squash, where we are going to break down the top 10 male wrestlers for WWE this year and build our short list out, which actually building the long list was very tough because we have so many part-timers on the men's side in comparison to the women's side. And we will, of course, be back here next week, breaking everything down and heading right into John Cena's last ever match in the WWE. Take it easy, everyone. We'll catch you next week.